Hi, my name's Matt Widgery from mattwidgery.com. Today I'm going to be looking at cameras for street photography. This is, as some of you may already know, a topic that's widely debated on the internet and in lots of circles where people discuss such things. And the general consensus has always seemed to be, and it tends to be kind of received wisdom, which is something that I always like to challenge, and actually came up on something else I was watching recently as well, which I'll come into. But the received wisdom anyway seems to be that you should use a small compact camera that is unobtrusive, doesn't frighten people off, and allows you to get candid shots without really interrupting the flow of what's going on in the street. This is obviously because if you have a big camera, it can be quite intimidating with a big long lens on it, and it can kind of scare people off. So I'll show you what I mean. When I do street photography, I take this. This is a Leica GR. It's very, very small. For those of you that smoke, I used to, but it's about the size, I don't know, 20 fags, something like that, and it's lightweight. The other big advantage is that it'll of course fit in your pocket, so that it's just easy to carry around. But the real reason that people say that they like to use these cameras is that it's stealthy, it's quiet. That's the shutter sound. Really, really quiet and unobtrusive. So if you want to take capture candid moments of people on the street, then this is a great way to do that, because it doesn't interrupt people. So if people are having a conversation and there's like little gestures and moments that you want to capture, they're not going to be aware of what you're doing. You can take the picture and move on, and they probably won't even notice you're there. So you get shots that are really sort of true to life. Nobody poses or looks at the camera, or worse, kind of runs away and freaks out. And I think also a lot of street photographers, especially those that are starting out, are a little bit frightened maybe of how people are going to respond to them when they see them hold up a camera. Maybe they think they're going to get people shouting at them, or tell them to F off or whatever, and so they want to be stealthy and unobtrusive. So that's why these cameras have become very popular. And it started not just with digital, of course, but when you look at the grand masters of street photography, people like Henri Cartier-Bresson, he would use a Leica, which was a very, very small camera for its day. This was a time when people would use medium format cameras or even plate cameras. So to have something that you could basically sort of just sling around your neck and carry around with you was a big departure from that, and made photography very subtle and unobtrusive, but it allowed him to catch some of the moments that he did. Flip forward and even more modern exponents like people like Bruce Gilden, for example, Joel Meyerowitz, all these sort of famous street photographers, they tend to use a Leica. Gary Winogrand, for example, they all used Leicas or small cameras at any rate. Very few street photographers tended to go for big cameras. In fact, the Ricoh GR, this digital one, the film version, there's a Japanese street photographer very famous called Daido Moriyama, and he used the 1990s progenitor of this, which was the original Ricoh GR, and that was a 35mm film compact camera. More or less exactly the same dimensions as, and kind of hard to tell, except that you don't have the screen on the back. So there's a long history of using small cameras. But I was actually watching a really interesting episode of The Grid the other day. Now, those of you that don't know The Grid, it's a guy called Scott Kelby from Kelby Training and Matt Kloskowski, and they do an hour-long live TV show broadcast over the internet that you can then go and watch afterwards if you want to catch up on it, or if it's in a time zone that you're not in. And they were talking, they had women talking about what it feels like to have a photographer take pictures of them, a street photographer take pictures of them on the street. And the thing was, universally, they were all saying that a small camera like this is more creepy than a big camera like this. Every single one of them, all the guests, and some of them, these were photographers too, some of these women. One was an airline pilot. They had lots of different jobs, but some of them even that kind of recognised, and in fact Scott Kelby's wife was on there, and she was talking about this as well. Obviously, she's married to a photographer and kind of does, I think, a bit of photography herself. They were all saying that if you turn up on the street and you got something like this, you kind of look like you're supposed to be there. You look like you're an official, you're professional, or that you've got the right gear, or that it might be slightly more legit maybe. Whereas if you, however good your intentions are, all of them thought that using a little camera like this kind of looked like you were trying to be sneaky, and trying to get shots, you know, that maybe you were sneaking shots of them that they didn't like. Now, obviously, 99.999% of photographers are not trying to be sneaky. They're not trying to get pervy shots of women on the street or anything like that. They're genuinely out there to, you know, to do this for artistic merits and to show life on the street, to show beautiful moments of humanity, and to juxtapose those against, you know, cityscapes, and, you know, explore what it is to be human, and what it is to be in the moment of modernity on the streets. Those capturing those moments of instant time that mean something to us as a photographer, and hopefully to those that look at them afterwards. And, you know, most of us, when we're out on the street with our little cameras, the furthest thing of our minds is ever to do anything that would be kind of considered a bit pervy or creepy. But I'm sure we've all had that, where, you know, we've raised the camera to somebody and they've not liked it, they've not responded well. It happens very rarely, it has to be said. I mean, you know, probably 1 in 10,000 shots that I take, somebody reacts negatively or wants me to delete the shot or anything like that. And I've never certainly, you know, been punched or anything like that. It's a very rare thing that people kind of, you know. But the people that aren't necessarily responding to you negatively, it's what they're thinking inside. Are we making people uncomfortable by the choice of camera that we have? So I'm not saying that you know, you shouldn't use a small camera. I'm not saying you should use a big camera. But what I'm saying is that it's worth us as street photographers considering these points, because it's not something that we do normally think about. And maybe it's something that we could maybe give a little bit more consideration and just be a little bit more respectful, perhaps sometimes, of how we go about taking street photography. As for me, you know, I love this camera. I think the pictures that it takes are really, really sharp and are, you know, really beautiful. I particularly like the way it renders in the files in black and white as well. And so there's a lot of, and I also like carrying it around. If you're walking around for 2 or 3 hours in town, as I've said in previous videos, that is a lot nicer to carry around than that. You know, it's a no-brainer really for me that I will want to carry on using these little cameras for doing street work. But is it going to, armed with this knowledge maybe of how you know, women in particular feel when I use this camera as opposed to the big one, will I approach them differently? Well, yeah, you know, I'll certainly be mindful of it, and perhaps you know, rather than just kind of going for those grab candid shots, you know, if you get the sense that you know, someone's weirded out by what you're doing, or is looking at you like, you know, she's uncomfortable, or he, it doesn't really matter who it is, but like they're uncomfortable, you know, maybe in that instance, you know, ask if you can, ask them for permission, you know, ask them if you can do a portrait shot, ask if you can, you know, take their picture, and try and develop a little bit of a rapport. I also find that regardless of the size of the camera that you use, and frankly, this is more about it, in my personal opinion, than it is about the size of the camera. It's about you as a photographer. If you look furtive, if you look shifty, if you look like you not really enjoying being there, or that you don't feel confident in your own skin, people will come up and people will respond to you differently. If you're confident and positive about what you do, if you're smartly dressed, you've had a shower, all that kind of stuff, and you're not being creepy and shifty, that goes a long way. The other thing that I find goes an absolutely million miles in any situation is to just smile and say thank you when you've taken the picture. So you take the picture and you go, thank you. It means, it's so easy to do, but it means the world. And if you engage someone, you look them in the eye and you smile and you say thank you, that goes a long way towards reassuring somebody that you're not a creep and a weirdo. And then maybe after that exchange, you've taken something, you know, you've taken a picture, but you've given them a thank you and a smile, and, you know, that can go a long way too. So I'm not saying that, you know, using a small camera makes you a creepy weirdo. I'm not saying that using a big camera doesn't make you a creepy weirdo. And in fact, you know, a lot of the received wisdom, which, you know, I personally hold true, if you're kind of like a million miles away with a big zoom lens like that, and you know, you're kind of taking pictures of people from the bushes, and you get caught doing that, then obviously, to my way of thinking, that's a lot more creepy and weird than being with the wide angle lens, being really close to somebody, and, you know, being quite, you know, deliberately showing that you're taking the picture, but then say thank you afterwards. But play it by ear. Bear that in mind is all I'm saying. It'd be interesting to hear your comments below on what, you know, your personal experiences are on the street. If you have a big camera or a small camera, or if you've noticed changing from a big camera to a small camera, or vice versa, if people have reacted to you differently on the streets, and, you know, what your experiences are. So if you like this video, subscribe, it helped me a lot, and leave your comments below. But that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again soon. Cheers.